Hi, I'm Michelle Olivier, and you're listening to Hey, I Want Your Job, the podcast that looks at amazing jobs and what it takes to get them. Welcome to Hey, I Want Your Job. And today I am joined by the quite fabulous Michael Morrison, whose job in many ways is to help me be better at my job and other people like me. So that was cryptic, unnecessarily so. Michael, what is your job?
I help small business owners succeed. We don't know what we don't know as business owners, so I've learned a lot and had some experience and a lot of failures. And so I help guide and steer other business owners from making those same mistakes.
Okay.
So business coaching, guidance,
That
consulting.
was very succinctly put. What is your technical job title? I don't even know. What do you call yourself in the business?
Well, I haven't titled myself, but my clients have. Some of them call me an accountability partner. Some of them call me a therapist. Some of them call their business guide, their business counsel. But technically, the industry title is business coach.
Okay. Okay. So I know a little bit about your backstory, but everybody listening does not. So give the 5-second answer to why the hell anybody should listen to you talk about business and how I think right now I've talked a lot in the past about a lot of people are claiming to be coaches that really probably shouldn't be. I don't think that you're in that camp, or
Thank
you
you.
would not be here. So talk to me about why you chose to be a business coach and what about your background makes you appropriate for that position.
Yes, great question. I'll try to keep it real short. I have a kind of colorful past, if you will. I was adopted. I was born into a domestic abuse family. My father was an abuser domestically and drugs and in and out of prison. And he kidnapped me when I was 3 years old by gunpoint, and my mom had to give us up for adoption. So I kind of lived that life. Had a great home life. It was loving, but it was very low middle class. So we didn't have the entrepreneurial experience, blood running through our family. And I finally just got tired of working for someone else, and I was in between marriages. I hate saying it, but I was. And so I decided that no one was counting on me at the time, so I'll just get up and start a business. And so I did and learned the hard way. Back when I started my first business, we didn't have Google. In fact, I don't even think Google had founded yet. And we had to go
Dating
to the
yourself.
library. Remember, anybody even know what the library is? I mean, we also had Rolodexes.
Library.
I love the library now, but back then that was the only resource for information. And it wasn't until I got a business coach that things started making sense. I was like, oh, there is an easier way to run a business and have fun doing it. And so I built some companies, and some successful, some not. One of them got considerably of size. We had about 100 employees, multi-million-dollar company. It was a marketing firm, and but I wasn't satisfied. And so I went back to my original business coach, who I love still. He's still my business coach today, 15, 20 years later, and told him about it. And he said, well, have you considered being a business coach? I said, because I'm not really satisfied. I love building cultures. I love people, but I wasn't satisfied or fulfilled being in that leadership role anymore. And so he said, he kind of listed some of the traits that he thought makes good business coaches and kind of shared those with me. And so I tried it on a philanthropy level. So I didn't charge. I knew that the only way I had access to this world-class coaching from different coaches and resources was because our company was doing well. And I also knew that other small businesses didn't have that luxury. So I thought, well, I'll go out and find me some in the community that want to grow, but don't have the resources for the access that I got, the tools and resources I had, and did it for free. Kind of that's where my philanthropy effort came in. And we all know what people do with free information. Absolutely nothing. So for me, as an action person, take action type person, it was very frustrating. And so I went back to my coach and said, this is not for me. They're not doing anything in between business sessions. He said, well, if they're going to do anything, make them pay you. And that way, at least they're going to do one thing. He said, before you meet again, make them pay you. And I said, okay. Well, of course, that kind of weeded out the bad people, because they don't want to pay. And I started getting some paying customers and then fell in love with it. And slowly started over the years exiting my businesses that I had. And now I do this full time, and I'm building this as a business as well. So kind of helping business owners, making it simplified for the business ownership role.
Okay. So
Was that short or long enough?
I think that was, you really kind of hit the mark there. Like that was a really good balance. We like got the very, very beginning. As the interview coach, I would have told you maybe we shave off the beginning part, but in this case, it was really interesting and great. So I give it 4 out of 5 stars, Michael. Well done. So with saying all of that, one of the things that I really love about how you approach all of this is the fact that you are completely transparent about the fact that you have not always been smart, not always been wise, and often fallen dramatically on your face and just totally eaten dirt. And I think that that's really relatable, but I think it's also that vulnerability makes it a safe space for other people to be like, oh, I also suck at things. Help me.
Yeah.
So how did you, like, people don't just come out of life being like, you know what, I like to talk about all of the ways that I'm a failure. How did you get to that Zen place with being able to put that out there?
Whew, that's a loaded question.
It wasn't meant to
Growing,
be.
well, growing up, I was an introvert. Now I love speaking with people, meeting people, completely different. But what I realized is there are more people like that than than that come across as an extrovert. There's a lot of introverts trying to be an extrovert when they're really not. And so I wanted to just be that person that, hey, I'm comfortable in my skin. I was there, and I don't want you to feel captured or captive trying to be somebody that you're not. Here's some things I went through. Here's some failures. I was that last kid picked on the playground growing up. I'm not ashamed to say I've been divorced before. I mean, a lot of people have. That's a life event. I've filed bankruptcy before. I've had a failed business before. I've been in litigation. And I think the more that we can relate to people with our story, the easier it is just to be you. And then you don't feel pressured to try to, be this someone that you're not.
I think that is so true. And I think for me as a professional, like the moment where I became comfortable owning my whole story instead of feeling this need to compete, to always be right, to act like I know everything when Lord knows I do not know most things, was the time when I really became more successful as a professional. But B, God, it got a lot more fun and a lot less awkward. When you give yourself permission to sit in the meeting and they say, hey, Michelle, what is the, current market rate for a such and so role? And when I was younger and dumber, I would have made up some number,
Oh,
an educated guess, but a made up guess. And then like I said, I came to a place where I would just be like, I don't know. Are you under the impression that I walk around with an entire table of how much every role in the world is worth? You just made that up.
yeah,
Why would I know that? Give me Google in 30 minutes and I can answer, but like
right.
right now, I cannot. And so getting to that place, it was just like this sigh of relief almost professionally to not need to be perfect, to not need to carry everything in my head all the time. And I know that when I am coaching people for interviews for professional branding, that's one of the pieces of advice I give is like in an interview, people often feel like it's not okay to say, I don't know.
Right.
And they feel like they have to make up an answer. And that's really hard for me to overcome, even with an interview, what tips and how do you do that with a business owner? Because I would imagine for people who aren't already in that place, that's got to be really hard to have like staff ask you a question and be zen with being like, no clue. Or
Yeah.
being able to say, well, screwed that up. We should probably try it a different way next time. Like those are hard things to do, especially when people are looking at you for an expertise. So how do you coach people in getting zen with that?
Well, the first thing is being what most people would call vulnerable by sharing my story. And, you're kind of talking about that moment in time when you realized I don't have to be that person. For me, it came, when I built a business, my first one, and it started being successful. We started getting some recognition in the community, things like that. Of course, having never been in that place before, it all went to my head, and then all of a sudden I had to be this person because now the community sees me as this. But then it doesn't take much to be humbled from a life experience, and I was humbled at one point, and it changed for me. And that's when I realized I was under a lot of stress that I had only created myself by trying to be this someone that everybody else had labeled me as community leader, success, all this stuff. When really inside I was miserable because
So
I was
talk to me
trying
about
to.
your humbling moment. Like I feel like that's crying out for me to ask, right? What was the way that what did that look like for you?
When I realized that I wasn't who I thought I was and who other people thought I was. You can really be humbled as you're building a company, and people can see. It's kind of like the imposter syndrome, and that's what I went through. Was I really don't know as much as people think I do, and so I really inside started getting nervous. Like, what if I get found out? I don't know what I'm doing. This business is just growing. And then I realized the reason it was growing was because I had awesome talent. It wasn't me, it was them. And so I had to take that's when I said, I got to take myself, because I was the face of the company.
Hmm.
I'm in Oklahoma City and we're kind of a tight knit. I mean, we have a reputation of being friendly and all that stuff and close. And it really is true. And so as companies grow, those people get plastered on the newspaper and this, that, and another. And so I came to the realization, I was like, what if they find out about the bad stuff? I need to come clean, like with everybody before, because I don't know why, but my biggest fear was being on the front page of the newspaper for something. There's always, people are getting, what would you call it, written up about some things that aren't even true. I mean, but they're just false accusations in the news. And I was like, what if they find out and I'm on the front page? I can't. So that's when I was like, it was really a season of humbling myself and saying, I need to come clean. I need to share my real stories I have been married before. I'm not this, business owner that has this perfect life. So that was one of them, one of the humbling moments.
I think that's pretty dramatic. I will say that I learned last year, I had always assumed that nobody reads like the community, like magazines and newspapers. I live in a bougie neighborhood. We have our own like Tara, this is today newsletter thing that goes. I don't read that shit. I assumed
Yeah.
that everybody was like me until I was on the cover of the damn thing, and all
Exactly.
of my neighbors are like, "Oh my God, Michelle, I'm like, oh, your kids are so cute." I'm like, I know that you see them all the time.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, but they
Yeah.
scrub up great. I'm like, oh, awkward panda. Yeah. So like I totally I get that. I cannot imagine in my community like anybody noticing me enough to put me on the cover. But now I have a new thing to be worried about
Yeah.
because I as much as what I do is being the front man for our business, I really hate being in the limelight. And like
Yeah.
if either of my partners would love to take over the reins, gladly will I
Yeah.
relinquish.
Go for it.
You
Yeah. It
know my
was,
partners, and you know that will never happen.
yes. Right. But we love them. Yeah, that was it really, for me anyways, I had to learn to quit trying to be something that I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't a lifelong business owner. I didn't have my stuff together. I wasn't this awesome entrepreneur. It was my people. And so I started trying to remove myself from being the face of the company, if you will, in the community. And then I started sharing my story, and then all this weight just started falling off my shoulders because I was coming clean. And you know what? I had the best conversations, and I have the best friends now because of that, because they're like, you know what? Wow, that happened to you. It happened to me, and I've never shared that with anybody. Thank you.
I think there is something really it just brings people in about that willingness to lay it on the table and be vulnerable. And I think people really underestimate how being humble, truly humble, not false modesty, which is just irritating as all get out,
Hmm.
but like genuine humility and owning our faults, how engaging that is and how much that really pulls people in. And again, put it back into my world because it's all about me, Michael. Like, when I think about like how I prep people for interview, that's a big part of what I say is that, if you're in an interview with somebody and you say something stupid or you don't know an answer or you like something happens that is not great, just own it and be
Right.
like, well, sorry, I am really nervous today and I just said something really dumb. Can I get a do-over on that one?
Yeah.
Everybody just laughs, right?
Yep.
Like, and you can't help but kind of like that guy a little bit more that, managed to do that. So, and one of the stories I always tell is I went for the final interview for a job I really, really wanted, and had a whole panel of people, and I was had to do a big presentation, and I was setting up the stuff for my presentation. The very first thing I did was knock over a jug of water into the laps of the entire panel,
Love
and
it.
I was like, well, that's suboptimal. And I went and I got some paper towels and I cleaned up the table and then I handed them the paper towels. I'm like, I'm going to refrain from cleaning your laps for you. I feel like that's a line we're not looking to cross in the interview. And they all laughed. And like, nobody was thrilled at having water in their lap. And we're not talking like a little bit. I mean, like a jug of water just all over. But everybody laughed and I got the job. And years later, one of the people that was on the panel came to me and she was like, you know what, honestly, the moment you did that, we were sold because our take on it is we can teach you a lot of things, but we can't teach you how to be cool and have a sense of humor when shit goes really
Right.
wrong. And it
Yep.
will because it's life. And
Hmm.
so we were all like, nope, she'll work. That's the rest we can work on. I was like,
Yeah.
I hope the rest wasn't bad. And she was like, no, the rest was fine. But like that was for us like the defining moment. And I think that people underestimate how often in our lives that really kind of is the case,
Hmm.
that it's actually the way that we're handling our faults, the way that we're handling the stuff going wrong that is why we wind up getting to succeed. So with that then, obviously it makes a great anecdote once you're out of the weeds of your,
Yep.
massive screw up.
Hmm.
It's not a great anecdote when that's the life you're living, right? When you're
Right.
filing for the bankruptcy or you're in litigation or in the throes of a divorce, also divorced. Mine was really easy though. I was just like, we should get divorced. And he was like, yeah, sure, cool. All right.
Mine was not. Mine was like Kramer versus Kramer.
Oh,
Like it was ugly.
my current husband and I, believe me, we have a post nup because
Yep.
we know that we are ridiculous hotheads and that like I will be like, I don't care if you're the father of my children. I'm going to leave you penniless under a bridge, you bastard.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we have already got like yeah, I totally
Hey,
totally feel you.
I'm all
But
about those.
my first husband is just not that guy. He's the nicest person on the planet. You couldn't get that way about him. Um, but so how do you coach people through those moments? Like what is your advice for how you help people survive professionally, personally, what have you, the going through the divorce, the litigation, the I'm going to have to lay people off because my business is not thriving kind of moments?
Yeah, it's definitely a case by case. But what makes it a little more easier is I can empathize with the business owner. So to answer your question, like, I don't know, 2 hours ago, and I just kept rambling about business owners and how we break that wall down, I just share my story. Like, I'm not perfect, but I am here to help you because I have failed so many times. I know what it's like. You're going to fail. In fact, if you follow me, I mean, I know you and I are friends on LinkedIn, but I'm always posting my greatest lessons learned are failures. And so when the business owner is going through a struggle, they typically don't have a problem sharing all the details. Even if it's like, my wife's mad about this, she's fixing to leave me. Like, I know more than their spouse does most of the time, because I can relate to it. So when they're actually going through it, some people, everybody has a way of dealing with their struggles. And at that point, I usually kind of know what their buttons are, and so I'm there for them. But most importantly, they know, because I've already shared my failures, the big ones. They know I can empathize with them. It's kind of like one of those things, like if someone's child dies and someone says, "Oh, I understand," or they empathize, but they've never been there. I don't do that. I only empathize and show sympathy and hold their hand along the way if I've been there. If I haven't been there, I say, you know what, I've never experienced this, but my first business coach has. Let's have a coffee with him, or something like that. I won't try to console or guide someone through something that I've never been through. And that's why I love the business coaching. Is one of my businesses that failed, that the company filed bankruptcy and I had to file bankruptcy. And one of my board of advisors from that company, he said, you know what? He said, keep your chin up. And I said, oh, I am. I'm learning. This is a journey for me. And if I'm going to coach others, I can now say, hey, it's gonna work out. I know I've been through the process, and they're going to go, okay. I've been told by several of them, you're just a voice of hope because you understand what I'm going through. Even though you can't fix it, even though it's a different situation than yours was, you understand. And so by them saying that, if it's something that I haven't gone through, I don't feel comfortable guiding them through that. And I'll try to find somebody that has, because those are traumatizing events. And like that board of advisor said, he said, look at it this way: through your bankruptcy, that's just another feather in your resume of helping business owners through that, or avoid it if they can. And the reason for that bankruptcy and the demise, I would say the company imploded, was because it was a toxic partnership. You and I have talked about this. We had a business partner, and it went south. So it wasn't the business or economics. It was just I should have done more vetting myself. Like, I owned the business and I brought partners on. I'm that guy that's good with a handshake. I just one of those guys. I shouldn't have done that. So when I look at that failure, I blame myself. Like, my wife still, don't you hate him? And I'm like, no, I hate myself. Like, I should have done my due diligence on how to form a partnership, how to vet a partner out, but guess what? Now that I've gone through that experience, I feel like I can guide other business owners through partnerships. What are those obstacles that'll come up down the road? Where do we need to detour? What are those road bumps?
I do
So it's
just
just,
have to interject at this point that you said, "Oh, we've talked about bad partners." To my partners, it was not because you're bad partners.
oh, no, 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 no,
My
no,
partners
no, no,
are
no,
fine. I do not think they are
no.
evil. Yes, we have been friends for 30 years, but like,
No,
we're
y'all
good
are
girls.
you all are awesome. What you and I were talking about, just to
No, I
confirm
know.
that with them, was when we were talking about, have you ever worked with a partnership? And so I
Yes.
opened myself up and said, yes, I have, and here's what I learned from it. I've had great partnerships as well. There's nothing wrong with a business partnership, but anyways, those life experiences is how I can relate to the business owner
So
when they're
you
going through those
formed
times.
such a symbiotic sort of emotional connection with the people that you work with, and that it's not just like you're not the guy that dials it in and shows up for the meeting and then is like, great, dispense knowledge, bye, like
Yeah.
I'm out, bitches. Like that's
You're
just
right.
not you. You're very much, as you say, all of their personal life as well as their professional life and everything in between. And in times like 2020, when all of that is a dumpster fire,
Hmm.
that's a lot. So
Yeah.
what do you do to protect you from taking that home and dumping that on your wife and kids?
Well, so my wife is completely opposite of me. I like to say she has no emotions, but
Oh,
she, so for me to share that with her, she wouldn't give a crap anyways. But
but if you are like carrying all of that in your big dark cloud yourself because you've taken on everybody else's negativity, that she would notice and that she would give a shit about because she'd be like,
yeah,
Michael, you're kind of a jerk today. Could we knock it off?
right,
So, I mean,
yeah. Um, that's a great question. I guess through my own humbling of myself and learning how to deal with emotions, I can put those away. I guess it would be kind of like a nurse. Sometimes they can just leave all that stuff at the hospital.
but sometimes they
Some,
turn into Nurse Ratchet
Sometimes,
and they forget how to.
yes,
But that's a real thing is empathy
yeah,
burnout. We see that in, you know, first responders of all flavors, right? Like police officers are notorious for empathy burnout, not because they're horrible humans, but because they just get so inundated with the worst that our society has to offer that like you can't maintain. And I would think that the same would be true for going through something like, COVID helping a bunch of small businesses, and all small businesses did not fare well in 2020. Only Jeff Bezos
yeah,
came out ahead in that
right,
one. So,
yeah, and the mask people.
mm, yeah.
They, I guess because I can see around the corner, because a lot of the issues that they have, I've been there. And so for me, I don't really carry the sorrows with it. What I carry is that I can't wait till they get around the corner because then I know how they're going to feel. And they always do. COVID, I would say I work with awesome clients. And it wasn't because of me, because all I do is guide people. They're the ones that have to take action. So if they don't take action, I'm of no use to them. So, but all of my clients through COVID thrived. But it was because they had taken action in the previous years to set themselves up for success, for economic. And nobody saw the pandemic coming, but I always help my clients get to a place where if we have an economic disaster, financially, like a stock market crash or whatever, that they can weather the storm for at least 6 months to a year. And so a lot of my clients were in that place for the pandemic. And so they had the resources to continue on doing business. They had some options. We do what's called a SWOT. And in the marketing world, that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I do that with every single client. So things are going good today, Mr. Boss or Mrs. Boss. But let's think about when they're not going good. What are we going to do? That's one of the things we talk about. And so having business counsel, guidance, mentor, coach, whatever, whether it be me or anyone, helps get you and your business in that place. And so that for me, that's why I don't really carry around a lot of the weight that my owners do, because I know that they'll get through this quickly because they've prepared for it. They've taken action, and I've seen what they can do, and I know they can get through this as well. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It did. So, yes, you're very good at answering the questions.
Thank you.
Eventually, Michael, we get there.
Exactly.
Um, so that's a lot of investment to put in a client. And I know for me, I'm picky as hell about who I'll work with. As you know, ONH Consulting is not vague on our politics. We are very proud of our politics.
Yeah.
And so we lose some business because of that, but we're down. Like, honestly, if my Black Lives Matter mask offends you so much that you don't want to work with me, that's probably for the best. Because if
Right.
that was a problem, you don't even want to know the rest of the shit that's going to come out of my mouth. So, like, So we're very clear on that. But that, I also have other requirements, right? I don't work with douchebags. And that is from a recruitment perspective. I've been a recruiter for a long time, and I've had to recruit for companies that I did not think were good places to work. And I don't do that
That
anymore.
would be hard to
It is the
recruit for a
worst.
company you don't like
It
working
is
at.
the worst
Yeah. Wow.
because you literally feel like you're lying. You're like, well, here's the good news. Here's the paycheck.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, but I don't do it anymore. I only recruit for companies that I would act like if I wouldn't let my best friend work there, I don't recruit for you, because
Great.
I feel like otherwise I'm lying to people when I sell your company, and I'm not going to do that. So I have those kind of standards in place. Again, I don't do career coaching and that kind of stuff with people who I can't talk to. That if I think
Mm-hmm.
you're a jerk, I'm just going to say I'm not the person for you,
Yeah.
because I've got better things to do with my life than that. So I don't. My standards are, you must have similar things that are people who are like, I feel like you're not the person I'm going to get invested with, and this is not going to be the right choice for you. So what are your red flags in a potential client that make you say this is not the right thing for you?
Yeah. Ethics, obviously, first of all, is I try to read people,
Mm-hmm.
which is hard for me to do. But I do, the number one requirement is they have to be someone that wants to take action and grow their company. I've had people come to me that have, I call them home-based businesses, and asking for advice, and I can't help you because the only thing I can do is help you grow and
You're a
go through
lifestyle
this
business.
journey.
Yeah.
you know. So that's the first one, and then the second one, like I said, is taking action. They have to be willing to take the action, or else that's more than just my reputation on the line of being effective. That's a waste of their resources as well. And I'm just not going to take somebody's money if we're just going to be chit chatting during our sessions and then they don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
If you remember, that's my philanthropy effort, helping other small
Yeah.
businesses for free. Got real frustrated. I mean, literally within 2 months, I was like pulling my hair out. Like, if you only knew how much this cost, but not only that, how much it works,
Mm.
you would take action. But so taking action and definitely ethics. I'm like you though with a jerk, suave and Mr. I've got money. I mean, I've had people approach me, with those types of businesses, and I'm like, yeah, we're not going to get along because I don't get along with people like that. I do get along with them. I'll be cordial, but what'd you call them, douchebags or
Douchebags,
jerks?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All of the
So
above, I've called them. Yeah.
those top three things is what I look for.
So what I'm hearing is you work with a lot of Bitcoin traders and
No.
a lot of cottage industry lifestyle
Yeah.
companies. Those are your go-tos.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah,
so
and I stay away from venture capitalists, those types of businesses because they are all about the money, and I'm all about the people. Like, if you're, that's kind of one of my go-to questions as well is, what's the end goal or what? I have some questions I'll ask them to see if they're more about the money. Are they money driven, or are they actual, like, I want to help people. I want to help
yeah,
those people that want to help people. The money will follow. If you're doing a great job at what you do, the money will eventually follow. But if it's just all about the money, to me, that tells me a little more a little bit more about where their heart is,
yeah,
and that they'll cut corners, they'll do whatever it takes to make a dollar. And I'm like, I don't want to work with you.
yeah. Okay. So it's got to be a balance of heart and profit driven for
Yes.
you.
Yep.
Um, so that's asking a lot in the business community sometimes.
Mhm.
One of my favorite feelings in the world, because I am a little bit of a jerk myself in some ways, is I love breaking up with clients. Like, I my partners know I absolutely adore it when like somebody who should not have has purchased our services and they're like, I can't work with so and so.
Yeah.
Let me
Yep.
call them and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We are not going to be the company for you. I've issued a
Yeah.
full refund. We wish you the best. Not really,
Yep.
but we're going to say that." And
Yeah.
like, I think it is so empowering to fire a client, because it's the time that you really feel like you're owning your integrity and like remind. It's the best part of being a small business, right? It's like I get to.
Absolutely.
I don't have to work with you because I hyperglobal megacorp tells me I do. Been
Yeah.
there, done that. And and I think like that is fantastically empowering to me. Am I weird? Is it like, is that just me? Is that pretty ubiquitous? How do you recommend people handle that in general?
Yeah. So we've talked about values. So my coaching starts everything with values. That was part of my humbling experience, that I was talking about earlier as well, was I was taking on every client. I mean, that's why we were getting so big. But what I realized is those people we just described, the jerks and the douchebags and all that, they were making us all miserable. My entire team. I mean, the way they talked to my team,
Yeah.
the way they were always, well, we send you so much business. I'm like, I don't care. Like, we're still human. You're not going to treat
Mhm.
us like animals. And so through that humbling experience is when I learned what you do, and that is to pick and choose. And so I gladly decline business if it's someone that doesn't align with my values. And
Yeah.
so through that humbling experience, I really came out of my shell and I was like, you know what? I need to focus on me first and see who I am, what I'm all about, what I believe, what I don't believe, and then stick to those values and find people like that, that have those similar values. And life since then has been a lot grander.
So where do you find those people? Like where do you find clients for business coaching business? I mean, just jump. I can't see you pounding the phone with cold calls, Michael. That is not.
No, no, I am not one of those pressure sales guys at all. Most of them, like referrals online, a lot of them can resonate, because I tell my stories online too.
Mhm.
I've shared in posts, I filed bankruptcy, I've been married, and people just start relating to it,
Mhm.
and and so they usually come to me. That's where most of my business, because there's something that I've said either in a keynote speech or online in a social post or on a blog or something, and they're like, "Wow, yeah, I can relate."
Mm. So you just like you post a couple things on LinkedIn about having been divorced and suddenly people start throwing money at you. Michael,
Absolutely.
I need to change my LinkedIn tactics. Like
Yes.
I am obviously doing this wrong. Like I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I have not led with I am divorced. Maybe that's where I need to change my
You
pitch.
should do it. No. But it is all about the marketing and the content
Mhm.
and telling stories that people can relate to. Most of my business is from marketing. And
So
every time they, well, for instance, like a lady that scheduled with me yesterday, she said, everything you said on your website, I was just cringing because I'm like, are you living my life or am I living yours? Because she could relate. And so we already had broken that icebreaker, if you will, of what do you do? How do you do it? She was like, I can already relate to you. So how did you get through it? How did and that's where the conversation usually starts.
I feel that. I also, I guess, one of the questions that I get a lot from people, both, businesses and private individuals, is in 2021, what does networking look like? Because we haven't been having big events and we're not live and in person with people a lot of the time. So is it all LinkedIn? Is it like where do you network these days?
These days in our city, a lot of places have opened back up, so there are a lot of networking events. But prior to that, it was all online. There were a ton. I mean, network after work, I think. I mean, there's so many of them out there and that was kind of fun actually, because everybody on there wasn't in your community, so you had never seen them before.
Mhm.
That was kind of fun. So you got to meet a lot of new people, experiences, make new friends, but mostly online networking events.
And so for small businesses, traditionally, historically, you would join like a chamber of commerce, or you would, the Better Business Bureau or something like that to get, you know, your foot in the door and start to meet people. Is that still relevant in 2021? Or
Not yet. Our chamber here just opened back up for live events this month, I think, or maybe it's next month they're starting. So, a lot of those resources that we used to have weren't available. I've seen a lot of small business owners go to referral partners, and what I call a referral partner is someone who serves the same type of prospect you are prospecting, but in a different industry. So, for instance, I work with business owners. Well, there's financial advisors that work with business owners. So we team up and we refer each other. My attorney, he is everything business law, from startups to litigation and everything. Strictly business. So we're referral partners. So I've seen a lot of business owners kind of go that route, and it works. I highly suggest it for most business owners.
so for a business owner who doesn't know where to find those people, where do they start? Do they call you and then you like, that's day two? We talk about your values, and then day two is I show you how to make these connections. I mean,
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah, so that's not even really part of my coaching until we get to marketing. But the first thing is just start thinking. So if you work with business owners, who else works with business owners? And just start making a list. And then think of someone in the community that you'd like to, it takes both sides. Because I know some business owners, they'll like team up with someone, and there seems to be one always sending referrals, but the other one's not reciprocating. And that doesn't end well. But making a list of like clients, and then what other vendors would they use? So like if I was a roofing company, I might team up with a guttering company. Like, hey, while you're up there on the roof fixing their guttering, if you see roof problems, like, damage, call us and we'll do the same when we're up replacing it.
Yeah.
And then siding companies, and then, thinking of it like that. We're all working on a house, but we do different things.
I think that I personally think that's really great advice. And, we help people with their like individual branding a lot, because especially for execs, if you're going to be in the job market as an executive, yeah, you need a resume, but there's not going to be like CEO when wanted. You know what I mean? Like that's not
Oh, yeah.
a job ad that's out there. So you have to have enough of a brand, enough of a presence to get noticed.
Right.
So that somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Michael, we're looking for a CEO. I feel like you might be a great match. Let's talk."
Mhm.
Right. And
Absolutely.
so we talk about like the need to diversify, but that a lot of what you're saying, I think, is really applicable to the advice that I give out as well, which is that you need to find a voice
Mhm.
that is you, that is authentic and comfortable and like is a skin that fits in your professional space. And then you need to use it really, 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 really loudly
Yes.
everywhere. And that by doing that, the people that are your people will find you. And I think, I that works, I know, in personal branding for like executives, but I also think that, that's what I'm hearing is you're saying something similar for business folks. And definitely I would say like that works for us. Like I just show up on LinkedIn and rant about whatever the hell I'm going to rant about today, as you know. And then people turn around, they're like, "Oh, that was a really smart thing you said. Why don't you come deal with my recruitment?" And I'm like, "Sure, why the hell not? You see,
Right.
if we can agree
Yeah.
about that thing, we can probably agree about other
Right.
stuff too. So we good."
Yeah. Yep.
I think
It's all about connections.
it is. And I think that one of the things I really dig about the space that we kind of in time that we find ourselves in is that I think that unlike the old, networking events and cocktail party stuff of
Mhm.
like the entire rest of my professional career,
Yeah.
that these days when we have this stuff online, everybody is sober, so that's a good start. But that it because you are having a lot of sort of passive micro interactions, like people who follow me on LinkedIn and see all my posts all the time or come across my posts because other people do. They get to see a lot of what I think without having to have a conversation where they're like, "So, Michelle, tell me about your deep thoughts on the following 15 subjects," which is
Yeah.
a weird thing to say at a social networking event. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? Because
Oh
you've
yeah.
got crowds and like all of that. So for me, I think that that's actually a really cool thing about the space that I'm in
Hmm.
right now. I also just suck at live networking events. I'm the worst. I never know what the hell to say to anybody. I'm a massive
Well,
introvert. I'm like, why are they looking at me? What is
well, most of
happening?
them are a waste of time, anyways. I'll be honest, and that's what I've really enjoyed about this season of life. Right now is the opportune time for every small business owner to succeed. I mean, never in the history of our world has there been more tools, more resources for every business. If you think about how business was 20, 30 years ago, only corporate America had access to tools like Zoom. It
Mm.
wasn't Zoom then, but remember the big
Yep.
corporate boardrooms and they had those big TVs and the
I worked for
screens
those
and
companies. I was there
no
looking
small
at
business
equipment.
owner had access to that stuff. So we weren't able to do things. Now we can do everything the big boys and girls can and
And
more because
yeah,
people are supporting small business, especially because of the pandemic. I mean, there's just so many positives that came from the negative for small business owners. Resources, money, new business, support. You know, you've never really heard about small businesses I mean, everybody knew about small businesses in the past, but now it's like support your small business, support your small business. I mean, you see it
yeah.
everywhere.
I mean, Austin has always been kind of that way, right? The whole Keep
Yeah.
Austin Weird movement, and very much about that. But again, Austin is in so many ways an anomaly. But but what I do think will be interesting going forward for me is I wonder if we're going to start to see the demise of the hyper global megacorps, because they, they my husband works for one of the big four, and he's
Mhm.
like, nimble we are not. Like, we're the freaking Titanic, and we're just
Yeah.
hoping we don't find like that we have to spot an iceberg 2 years out to
Yeah.
turn the wheel enough. Because it's just, when you have 600,000 employees, or,
Oh yeah.
you're a Walmart with like, I think we did some Googling the other day about who are the biggest companies in the world. Walmart is the largest company in the world. They have
Are they
2.5,
really?
2.5 million members of staff.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Now you
Amazon
learned.
right behind them? Or
Amazon is a little bit further down the list. There's a couple of
Microsoft?
Chinese companies in there. Microsoft, not even the top 20
Oh, really? Okay.
things that
Interesting.
we were fascinated by the whole thing ourselves. But yeah, so by like orders of magnitude, um, for privately held companies, so not counting like the US Department of Defense, which is
Yeah.
like, you know, like not even in that thing. But
Hmm.
yeah, so not counting, the Chinese and American armies,
Yeah,
basically.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Walmart, and then like I said, there's a Chinese energy company, and then Amazon is like in the top five, and with literally millions of employees, and you just can't have 2.5 million employees
Yeah.
and be like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna change everything, and tomorrow gonna roll out this new deal, and that's gonna be how we
Yeah.
roll. Like that's not reality based for them.
Right.
And even like the smaller companies, right, that are like, so the big four all have around the 200 to 400,000 employees. That's a city.
Yeah.
And you just again, you can't wake up tomorrow and be like, our entire city is now going to do this new thing. Like
Right.
that's not reality based. But a small company can absolutely do that.
Exactly.
We
And
are
that's
agile, we are nimble. And I think
yeah.
that, I think that's really exciting. I'm going to shut up and let you tell me what you think.
No, that was all good information, and of course, I don't have anything against corporate America,
Nope.
like personally, but I am a huge, huge advocate of small business because I've been there. But right now, you asked it, are we going to see the crumbling of corporate America as we knew it? I think to some degree we will, because another positive coming out of the pandemic, we saw who corporate America really was. What we saw was it's all about the dollar. We're laying people off, we're letting people go. Small business owners that were taking out second and third mortgages, HLOCs, everything to keep their people employed. They didn't care, like every business owner, like coffee shops around here, they didn't care about the business. They cared about their employees. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic, I think a lot of the people in the corporate world that are still employed are now looking for other options.
Mhm.
They were just waiting for a little more stability. And that's where I think we're going to see the difference is not in corporate America crumbling, but they're going to be losing staff, key,
Yeah.
like good people, great people, because they don't want to work there anymore. They saw their colors.
I will tell you that one of the giant companies we were just talking about is really struggling to hire because they have a reputation for being massive douchebags.
Yeah,
And they are really, really, really having a hard time right
yeah,
now. And one of the things for me as a recruiter that I am the most excited about, like I've been through hot markets, like I'm old, Michael, right? Like you and I are roughly the same age. Like we've been through a lot, right? And so
exactly.
we've seen booms, we've seen busts. Like we've been like, oh, this is the biggest recession in 30 years, like
Yeah,
until the next one.
right.
So we've been through all of that before, but this is the first time I have seen in a market candidates who just say, no, I'm not putting up with that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. Like one or
No.
two, like, jumped up, thought thinks a lot about themselves. But this is like consistently candidates who are
Mhm.
like, I think that what you're asking me to do is abusive. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Or
see it with business owners. So many business owners that I talk to, they are getting like top talent. And that top talent is taking a pay cut to get out of that corporate world,
yeah.
to go work for someone that's more genuine and that actually cares about them and what they can bring to the table and be part of their business.
Well, and I think that also kind of going with that, one of the things that a lot of us learned in 2020, at least I did. I have always like I've been in HR, I've been in recruitment, and I am, director level, so in charge of people. And I have literally said the words more times than I know I could count. I don't care about your personal life. When you're on the clock, it's my time.
Mhm.
Your personal life happens on your time. I've literally said those words. And then 2020 came and was a huge reality check that is an asinine and stupid thing to say. So to all of my former members of staff, I apologize. Like I was totally wrong, but I think we've kind of collectively learned that lesson, right?
Mhm.
That it's a fiction that you can leave home and outside world at the door and
Mhm.
then just show up and be like, yes, I understand that the rest of the world is on fire, but here today, I'm going to focus on your spreadsheet. Like, that's not
Yeah.
reality. And then
Mhm.
when you compound that with the fact that we all got locked down and had to, as parents, have our kids at home
Oh yeah.
and you like deal with that absolute nightmare that was, kids on Zooms and all the rest of it, like it was just a lot. And I think
Mhm.
that there were a lot of business lessons that came out of that about what a healthy work environment looks like
Mhm.
and what it doesn't.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people are in the life is too short kind of mindset right now. And frankly, long may that last. But I think it's really interesting. I've got people turning down interviews if they can't, if they want an interview in person. Like, nope.
Right.
I don't show up for interviews. I'll Zoom you all day long for an interview. I'm not going to physically show up. That's ridiculous. Or people who turn down jobs. We were just working with a great company who was trying to hire CPAs. Super nice guy, fantastic work environment. For their work, they need people live and in person for at least like until they figure out what the hell they're doing, because it's easier to collaborate when you're in the same room. And we had a really hard time finding top talent that wanted to physically show up. They're like, nah, I feel like if they tried hard enough, we could make this happen over Zoom. I'm like, okay. And we had to go back to the owner and be like, you're going to have to get flexible. And he was like, I don't think I have to get flexible. He's a tremendously nice guy. But like we had to have those conversations. And I think that, again, he's a small business. So he was just able to be like, fine, I will be flexible. And then like decision was made and that was it. It was simple as that. Whereas a larger company, that's almost impossible.
Right. Yeah, there's the pandemic was horrible, but around the corner, I mean, there are so many positive things, lessons learned, cultural changes. You know, what I love about the Zoom and being forced to do that is I got to know my clients even better. Like, we're now friends. Like, I saw your dog, I saw your kids, saw your spouse in the back, you know, like I know you.
I had to check if he was still back there. Like, I thought he wandered off, but yeah.
Is that a crested, or what kind of dog is that?
Mine, he is a border collie, but he's a rescue, so he's a
I
beautiful.
only saw the tail.
It's very floofy.
Yes, but getting to really, really know people has been fun as well. And it has given us a chance to be ourselves. Because for a lot of people that I thought I knew, that they had it all together, and then I see them on Zoom and I'm like, oh my, your house, you do not have order of your house. Like, you know what I mean? And so I'm glad that I went
So
through
you're
that
that
humbling.
judgy bitch on the Zoom call. That's what I heard, Michael. Noted.
So I'm glad I had my humbling moment many years ago, because I've already shed all of my failures. And so when we get on these Zoom calls, they see who I am. Like, I'm the same person. But yeah, it's a really fun. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited as a business coach. I'm excited for small businesses. Again, if any small business owners are listening, now is the time to take action, or you're going to get left behind. I mean, that's just really what it is. I mean, because a lot of small businesses are thriving now, and those that aren't taking action and doing anything, status quo, my prediction is they won't be around much longer, because everybody else will zoom right past them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's always, adapt and survive, or stagnate and die. Like, I think that's kind of especially for a small business. And right now it is rapid change. You have to, and it's so technology based. And one of the things that I have heard and seen from a lot of folks, at the risk of sounding ageist, is that for people who are not as familiar and comfortable with technology, including people who generationally did not grow up with being on social media platforms and that sort of thing, that they're struggling. That now is a really hard time, because that is kind of the baseline expectation. So, I have one of my clients that is a personal friend. Love him dearly. He's been on my podcast. We handle his recruitment. Fantastic dude. He does not social media. Like, I feel like, why?
Yeah.
Because, buddy, that's how they know you're legit. Like, if as a business, if you don't have a LinkedIn presence that is actually a presence, like you post some stuff, you're there, you're saying things, you have a voice as a business, a candidate looks at that and thinks that you're not for real. They're like, this is some fly by night shit. Like, and again, from what you said earlier about like people looking for stability in a world that was really unstable for a while, that is like one of the huge red flags, right? Is they're like, you're not even real enough to have a logo on LinkedIn. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. And it's like, I have so many clients that like the beginning of my engagement with them is step one, act like a real company in
Right.
2021. And they're like, and inevitably their answer is, I'm just going to pay you to do that, which is fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. But like, it is absolutely an expectation now. And
Mhm.
I just think I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating. And I can't wait to kind of see how it all shakes out
Yeah.
because there are always cycles and trends, etc.
Well, back in the day, there was this thing called the phone book.
I don't think that's true. That's a myth.
It was called a phone book. There was no internet. And literally back in the day, if someone told you about a business and you went to try to find them and they're not listed, they're not a business. And that's how social media is today
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. It's like you can still be a business, but people aren't going to take you seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
and why would I want to work for someone that's not evolving? Why would I pick a vendor that's not evolving with the times? Because obviously the service, to me, that tells me their services and products that they offer haven't evolved either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my opinion, but
No, I agree. We were hilariously trying. My godson asked us the other day why there are so many businesses that are like AAA or
oh,
AA, what have
yes.
you. And we were trying to explain that it affected your positioning in the yellow pages. And he was like, what's a
What
yellow
is
page?
that? Yeah. It's
He was like,
that thing
really?
you sit on in a chair when you're too short.
Well, I mean, for like, he's never seen one. He's
Right.
15. He's never engaged with like
Okay.
a yellow pages. And I'm just like, oh my God, never have I felt more geriatric, including when I was pregnant. And they literally said it was a geriatric pregnancy. I did not feel nearly as old then as I did talking to my 15-year-old godson about what is a phone book, Michael.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, I
Kind of
think I
like
saw that
the
in a movie one time. I was like, oh, shut your face. And now we're done.
yeah, yeah. There's yeah. Age provides a lot of stories and things. Was showing my son, who's 11, the original Atari joystick, the one that only had one handle and the red button. That was
You know that
it.
my
And he,
husband collects retro gaming consoles, right? We have
no, that's
every video
awesome.
we have every video game console ever made.
That is awesome.
Is it?
So I was showing him. Yeah, well, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
I showed him that. He didn't say a word. He busted out laughing. That's all he did. He couldn't stop laughing. For 5-10 minutes. He just kept looking at it and started laughing again. I'm like, yeah, there's so much more that you don't know.
Oh my days. My kids were playing phone the other day and they picked up like some flat piece of plastic that was part of something else and they're held up against their face and like, yeah, hi, yeah, it's me. Uh-huh. And they were trying to sound like me. And my son goes, hang on, let me jump on Zoom for a second. And then he sat there like acting like he was texting on it. I was like, okay, we did this.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
we punched buttons. They were like, and literally they saw a picture of a phone and they were like one of those little toy phones that we
Yeah.
had when we were kids. It was
Oh
in
yeah.
we saw the new Boss Baby movie at the weekend. It's terrible.
Mhm.
Don't go. But the children took my husband to that for his birthday present. Lucky him. And
Wow. Okay.
they had
That's
like
awesome.
that plastic phone and the boys were like, Mama, what is that? I was like, that's a phone. And they're like, no, Mama.
No.
That is not what a phone looks
Yeah.
like. And I was
Well,
like,
that's, those stories are exactly like small businesses today.
mm.
Like now is the time to take action. If you don't know
You,
what social media is, start learning it. Do something.
if you don't want to be the rotary phone that the kids are like, what is that even being? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's like everything else, SOPs, standard operating procedures. I had a company that hired someone that came from a big company. The guy left like 2 weeks later because to him it was so dysfunctional. And I'm like, see, I told you, you should have been working on SOPs. Guess what he has now? SOPs.
SOP.
So he hired another general manager, and so far that person is still there 3 months later, thankfully. But again, it's that perception
Hmm.
of your business. Even if you're a one person show, look like you know what you're doing. Look like you know what you're doing,
Well,
and you will get recruits.
I will say to the person that did that, they do not have a good recruiter, because a good recruiter would have managed the expectations of that person and weeded them out. So they should
Right.
call me.
I will tell them.
I can
They
fix their
did.
shit.
They went the Indeed route. So I
Oh
tried to help
God.
them as much as I could, but I was like, yeah, and that's one thing about business coaches. We don't tell people what to do.
Sure.
We just like we're
Even
more
when we
like a
ask you
sounding
to,
board and a
as one of
guide.
your clients, even when I say, Michael, just what do we do at this? You're like, well, let's look at options. I don't want to look at damn options. I just, for once in my life as the business owner, I want to know what makes the decision. I want to be able to blame you if it
You're
doesn't
right.
go right. Can you
Yep.
just do that for me one time?
Sometimes I do that for people, but most of the time
Noted.
it's more about self-discovery so that they can then make the next decision based on that decision. They have to feel comfortable with that decision so that if something comes up around that arena of their business, they can execute, if I'm not there.
I know it's the responsible way to do it. It would just be really nice if you would just be like, you know what, Michelle, your way is kind of crazy and dumb. Try this instead. I would be like, why, thank you, Michael. I would be delighted.
I'll say that in our next meeting.
Brilliant. And so we are out of time because you've been delightful to talk to, and so we've
Wow.
run over. What have we not talked about that you want to make sure that we say?
Well, get a business guide. It doesn't have to be me. There's a lot of good ones out there, and there's also a lot of bad ones, just like there are everything else. I would say if someone's looking for business guidance, you asked me about my qualities of a client. I would say the qualities of a great coach should be, first of all, that they've owned a business. I would ask, have you ever owned a business other than your consulting business? Because there's a difference.
Yeah.
And what was the size? What were your failures? How did you overcome? I get personal. Because most business coaches that I meet have never owned a business, which is so disserving to, their craft and makes the rest of us look bad.
Like resume writers who've never been recruiters. Why would
Right.
you pay that person? They have no idea what the hell they're doing.
Yep. So I always encourage small business owners to get outside guidance of some form or fashion because it's like everything else in life. As parents, we need other parents for support. Spiritual, we need, there's churches, there's people, there's communion, there's communities, so why should it be any different for business owners? Business owners, I was stubborn at first, but I didn't know what I didn't know. I left a job to start a business because I didn't want someone telling me what to do. That's not what business coaches do. They do kind of what I've shared in our conversation is through life experiences. I can maybe detour you from, crumbling or the demise of your business and then give guidance and stuff. So that's my biggest advice to small business owners is don't be afraid to ask for help.
I love
Because
it.
even today, as a business coach, I have business coaches still. I believe in them that much because I still don't know what I don't know. I haven't been there yet. So that's my final.
I love it. And if people think that you are the right business coach for them, we will have all of the contact details for you in the show notes, and all of the ways to get a hold of you, to harass you, to stalk
the above.
you, cyber,
Sure.
yeah, all of the above. Be
All
great.
the above.
Be great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. I
Thank
really,
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun.
You've been listening to Hey, I Want Your Job. For more information on how you can get your own awesome job, visit ONH Consulting at www.onhconsulting.com. We offer incredible resumes, no-nonsense career advice, and real-world tips for landing a job in today's market. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta for more insider information. Soon, you'll be hearing us say, I'm Michelle Olivier, and hey, I want your job.